2024, where in the 2023 case, the defendant pled guilty to count 1, rape, a felony of the first degree, in violation of revised code section 2907.02A1B, count 2, rape, a felony of the first degree, in violation of revised code section 2907.02A1B, count 3, rape, a felony of the first degree, in violation of revised code section 2907.02A1B. On that same date in the 2024 case, the defendant pled guilty to count 1, pandering obscenity involving a minor or impaired person, a felony of the second degree, in violation of revised code section 2907.321A1 with an attached forfeiture specification. The court found the defendant guilty in both cases and ordered that the probation department conduct a pre-sentence investigation and reports. Court also ordered a victim impact statement. The state has had the opportunity to review these reports and is prepared to proceed with sentencing. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Regazio.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, I did submit a sentencing memorandum in these two case numbers. I would ask the court to allow me to incorporate that as part of my statement here today. I also submitted a letter from Mr. Bernstein's mother to the court, as well as a mitigation report from Dr. Archangela Wood. And I know that Your Honor did receive both of those as indicated in chambers. Your Honor, I would ask this court to take into consideration.
Before we, well, I've got to read him the explanation of duties to register, so let's do that first, and I'll let you get on with this.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, so Mr. Bernstein, I'm going to read you this explanation of duties to register as a sex offender, and then give it to you or give it to your counsel and ask you to sign it acknowledging you received this information. You've been, the conviction is in Lake County 23, CR 816, 24, CR 799. Last name Bernstein, first name Daniel, expected residence address 38450 Oak Hill Lane, number 3, Willoughby. You've been convicted of or pleaded guilty to a sexually oriented offense and or child victim offense as defined in 2950.01, and you are designated as a Tier 3 sex offender / child victim offender registrant. You are required to register in person with the sheriff of the county in which you establish residency within 3 days of coming into that county, or if temporarily domiciled for more than 3 days. You are also required to register in person with the sheriff of the county in which you establish a place of education immediately upon entering into that county. If you establish a place of education in another state but maintain a residence or a temporary domicile here, you are also required to register in person with the sheriff or other appropriate official in that other state immediately upon coming into that state. You are also required to register in person with the sheriff of the county in which you establish a place of employment, or if you've been employed for more than 3 days or for an aggregate of 14 days in a calendar year. If you establish a place of employment in another state but maintain a residence or temporary domicile here, you are also required to register in person with the sheriff or other appropriate official in that other state if you have been employed for more than 3 days or for an aggregate of 14 days in a calendar year. Employment includes volunteer services. You are required to provide to the sheriff temporary lodging information, including address and length of stay, if your absence will be for 7 days or more. After the date of initial registration, you are required to periodically verify your residence address, place of employment, and or place of education in person at the county sheriff's office no earlier than 10 days prior to your verification. If you change residence address, place of employment, and or place of education, you shall provide written notice of that change to the sheriff with whom you most recently registered and to the sheriff in the county in which you intend to reside or establish a place of employment and or place of education at least 20 days prior to any change and no later than 3 days after change of employment. If the residence address change is not to a fixed address, you shall include a detailed description of the place or places you intend to stay, and no later than the end of the first business day immediately following the day you obtain a fixed address, you must register with the sheriff that fixed address. You are further advised, in accordance with federal law, you must report any international travel to your registering authority no less than 21 days prior to travel. Failure to do so may subject you to criminal prosecution. You shall provide written notice within 3 days of any change in vehicle information, email address, internet identifiers, or telephone numbers registered to or used by you to the sheriff with whom you have most recently registered. Depending on your designation, you are required to comply with all of the above described requirements, in this case under Tier 3, for your lifetime with in-person verification every 90 days. Since your expected residence address, as stated above, is Lake County, you shall register in person no later than 3 days after release with the Lake County Sheriff's Office at 104 East Erie Street, Painesville, Ohio. Failure to register, failure to verify residence at the specified times, or failure to provide a notice of change in residence address or other required information as described above will result in criminal prosecution. And I'll ask you to acknowledge that you've been informed of the above requirements and sign the document. Ms. Vergasio.
Your Honor, my client has signed this document. Shall I return it to Your Honor?
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Vergasio.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, as I had briefly started to say, I did submit various items that I know Your Honor acknowledged receiving. And I would ask the court in fashioning sentence here today to consider the following additional information. Mr. Bernstein recognizes that this situation and these offenses are the result of terrible conduct that he committed. There's no other way to put that, and importantly, Mr. Bernstein does not wish to put it any other way. He recognized the trauma and the pain that he caused to the victim in this matter, as well as to her family, which is also his family. He recognizes that he caused a lot of people very significant harm and trauma in this situation. Mr. Bernstein showed that he recognized this, and he acknowledged that specifically by accepting full responsibility. He pled guilty in this matter at a pretrial hearing. He pled to the highest charges that he was facing at an early point in this case's procedural posture. And when he entered his plea to those charges, I would point out those are 3 charges that subject him to the possibility of either life without parole or 15 years to a life sentence, plus an additional possibility of an indefinite sentence of 8 to 12 years on the felony of the 2nd degree. And he pled to those charges knowing that the state was going to be asking for the maximum sentence here. Yet he did still accept responsibility at that early stage. He did not wish to put the victim nor any family through any more of the trauma and stress that had already occurred. He recognized that having a trial or having any further proceedings would further exacerbate the situation that was already, as I indicated, a horrible situation, which he does recognize. I would point out that Mr. Bernstein did himself suffer from a chaotic childhood. It's certainly not an excuse for what happened here, and he is certainly not here today making any excuses. But I think it is important to point out that he did himself have some significant challenges. He had no stability growing up, he did witness violence in the home. Again, that doesn't excuse the behavior here, and he does accept responsibility for what he has done. I would ask the court to fashion a sentence here that does give him the opportunity to go before the parole board after an amount of time in order for them to determine whether he has in fact spent the time in prison bettering himself, taking advantage of treatment opportunities that may be there in the prison. He does recognize that prison is required in this case. There's certainly the need for punishment here. But I would ask the court to consider allowing him the chance to rehabilitate, to take advantage of his time in prison, to gain insight, to continue treating his depression issues, and to take classes related to not only the sex offender situation, but also learning about the impact on victims and bettering himself in that manner. So I would ask the court to take all of that into consideration, to also consider that Mr. Bernstein has been incarcerated for over a year altogether while this matter has been pending, and he has used that time to reach out to mental health resources while in the jail to attempt to begin to better himself. So I would ask the court to consider all of that, to give him the opportunity at a sentence that does allow him to go before the parole board, where he would, again, have to show them that he has made progress, that he is someone who should be released into society at that point. And I would point out that if that were to happen, he would still be monitored at that point. He would still have prison hanging over his head. He wouldn't just be free and clear after he would be released on parole, if he were in fact released on parole. It is something that is challenging for prisoners to be able to get parole. They're often denied parole the first time that they even appear before the parole board. So I would ask the court to take all that into consideration and to give Mr. Bernstein a sentence here of 15 years to life in prison so that he would have the opportunity to rehabilitate. Thank you.
Mr. Bernstein, what do you want to tell me before I impose sentence?
Your Honor, Mr. Bernstein would stand on the information that he did provide in the pre-sentence report at this time.
Well, it's rather curious. So, as you related to Ms. Wehagen in your pre-sentence interview, you said you took her out of a bad situation, and that's sort of it. You advised her that you do not have details. You advised her that the victim is your cousin. She was 4 years old when she started living with you. Prior to that, she was staying with her grandfather, Kerry Kaplowitz, who was also your uncle. You told Ms. Wehagen that Kerry lost his apartment and was living in a storage unit. It had no interior bathroom, which concerned you. Later, Kerry's partner, and the victim moved into another place which was still small. You told Ms. Wehagen you, quote, saw a bad recipe in this because you grew up with Kerry and knew that he did stuff to his daughter, Emily. You had the victim over for a sleepover while Carrie was staying at a hotel. That was when you felt that you knew that your uncle was doing stuff, your words, to the victim. You called Emily over to discuss that Carrie was doing this. You claim that Emily knew it, and that's why she let the victim stay with you. Bad bet on her part, huh? And then, according to you, Emily just left the victim with you. That you were not expecting to have the child with you the rest of your life. You stated you did not know what you were expecting. When Ms. Wehagen asked how long before inappropriate things occurred between you and the victim, you said you do not know. When she asked you if you knew the offenses were wrong, you said you knew it was wrong when it was going on before, meeting with Carrie, which is why you got the victim out of her grandfather's house. What a noble gesture on your part. He told Miss Wehagen that you were teaching her it was wrong. She asked you to explain what that means. And you said if the victim was acting inappropriate, you would tell her, that's not right, don't do that. So the 4-year-old came on to you, apparently. You said you were not trying to cross the lines, but you were trying to teach her too. And you told Ms. Wehagen that you got yourself into a bad problem and it was too late. You realized that having a kid in your care acting weird would have people think it was you. Maybe because it was you. You recall being approached by a store employee who had seen the victim's unusual behavior. You did not know what to say to this employee besides that it was a problem that they were working on it. When Ms. Wehagen asked you how you got from correcting the victim's behavior to raping her, you replied, I don't know. So, and then you've got the pandering obscenity charge with all kinds of stuff on your devices. So it's clear to me that this, based on the information I see in the pre-sentence report, that this wasn't necessarily new behavior to you, or at least you had attempted such behavior before. Whether you were successful or not doesn't seem that you were. But you saw an opportunity with a 4-year-old, and you took it. And you saw the perfect opportunity. You're a very manipulative and cunning person. You saw that opportunity, and you saw an opportunity to blame somebody else for what was happening, and you were going to come in and save the day. You took advantage of this girl's mother because of her personal problems going on, and you saw the perfect opportunity and you took it. And in the course of this case, there was a request to determine the competency of the victim, which gave me an opportunity to sit down and talk with her. A very bright, girl with a very good personality, despite what you did to her. But what you did to her is, from what I've seen in 10 years on these type of cases, unparalleled. How vile and disgusting your actions were to this girl who was 4, 5, 6 years old at the time. Now, what makes somebody do that to a helpless child? I can't even begin to understand. And I don't know what you're thinking other than this nonsense that you were spouting to Megan through the course of this pre-sentence interview, because you have the opportunity, and listen, you can say anything you want, you can say nothing. I don't care, it doesn't matter to me, okay? I don't hold that against you for not saying anything, and I don't hold it against you for saying whatever you say, okay? That's all part of what needs to be done here. But I cannot think of any explanation why anybody would ever do this to a child.